Hello. You've caught me watching Nathan and Dave playing Metal Gear Solid 3. It's a game I've played many times before, but for some reason, watching them play is almost as much fun. No, really, it is fun. There's the unbridled fury of watching Nathan butcher the delicate stealth systems in one of my favourite games ever, sure. But that eye-patch-biting anger is outweighed by the vicarious thrill of watching two people experiencing Snake Eater's shocks, twists, and exuberant cinematic flourishes for the very first time. It's like when you're a parent watching your children opening their Christmas presents, you know. In some ways, it's even more exciting than when you were a kid opening presents yourself. Not even finished recording Metal Gear Stupid yet, and I'm already really excited for all the bits I know are coming. The boss fights, the story revelations. There's something deeply satisfying in watching someone play through a game you know and love and seeing their appreciation for it slowly blossom from a seed of confusion and curiosity to a beautiful flower of love and understanding. In a weird way, it sort of vindicates your own love for the game. And it's nice to share that feeling with new players, to welcome them into the family, to watch them slowly puzzle their way through all the tricky bits and, yes, flail about like an idiot fish when they should be hiding in the grass and changing their camo, for goodness sake. But in all seriousness, I really love just watching Metal Gear Solid 3 being played, despite the fact I've finished the game myself. When you know something so well, you sort of lose that sting of wonder from your first playthrough. You go through it mechanically, and there's undoubted satisfaction to be had in masterfully working your way through a game you're familiar with and very good at, but reliving that first time through someone else, you know, it's almost as good as playing it. Snake Eater is our first entry then, and here are 6 more games that are just as much fun to watch as they are to play. Our second entry is Detroit Become Human, and you could pretty much substitute this entry for any choice-based narrative adventure, you know, Heavy Rain, Until Dawn. But I've gone for Detroit because I played this with my wife, and we passed the pad at the end of each chapter. And honestly, watching her play was every bit as exhilarating as playing myself. It's like being absorbed in an amazing box set playing Detroit. Each chunk of story, a self-contained arc of high drama. The fact it looks better than pretty much every TV show out there is another thing in Detroit's favour. Seriously, that cinematography, or gameography I suppose, is astounding, and I was just holding my breath the entire time. My wife was at the controls during the, minor spoilers by the way, during the bit where Kara and Alice are hiding in Ralph's abandoned house and Connor comes in looking for them. Honestly, the tension in that scene was unbelievable. Like, I wanted Connor to succeed, of course, but at the same time, I didn't want Kara and Alice to be found. It was electric, and I wasn't even playing the game at this point, although I was so absorbed I may as well have been. Games like Detroit Become Human are absolutely perfect for this type of pass and play. An entire room of people can be gripped by Detroit just by watching it. The player sort of acts as the director in this scenario, making the decisions, guiding the story forwards. It's brilliant. Alternatively, you could finish Detroit and then watch someone else play just to see how their choices differ from yours. You'll likely watch a totally different game. I know I said there were minor spoilers earlier, but I imagine a fair few of you didn't even experience that scene when you played the game. Either way, watching or playing, Detroit Become Human is a heck of a thing. Resident Evil 2 is our third entry, and you know what? I think I might enjoy watching Resi 2 even more than playing it, simply because I get too scared otherwise. I mean, it's so immersive and atmospheric that I sort of just stand there in terrified paralysis if I'm the one doing the actual playing. Same with Dead Space and Alien Isolation, 2 amazing games I've never finished because I'm just too much of a coward. Watching someone else playing, however, now that's a different story. I get to enjoy the atmosphere, the beautifully crafted setting, the compelling narrative, without the pressure of having to brave the terror myself. You know, if Mr. X is chasing me down a corridor in Resi 2, I just give in. I remember playing Alien Isolation at a preview event years ago, and it got to a point where the tension just got too much for me, and I ended up just running, clattering right into the xenomorph's face. Kill me! You know, at least I was in control, ending things on my own terms, which is why watching horror games can, for players like me, actually be easier than playing them. Entry 4 is Broken Sword, and I'm putting this in here purely because of my own fond memories. I remember a long summer holiday back in my childhood when I stayed at my cousin's house for a week, and basically I spent the entire time watching him play Broken Sword. It was the first point-and-click game I'd ever seen, and I was just mesmerised by it. The freedom, the choice, the fact you were on the trail of this murderer and you had to figure out what items to use on what objects or people. I'd never seen anything like it before. I was hooked. First thing I do every morning, straight into my cousin's room. Play Broken Sword, play Broken Sword. We've all got those annoying younger cousins who constantly demand you play with them, haven't we? Yeah, that was me. And I'd sit there, glued to the TV, utterly transfixed, completely sucked in by the story and the setting and the characters. What a game. It was a few years before I finally got around to playing Broken Sword myself. I saw it in a trade-in store and instantly my mind raced back to that amazing week in the summer and bought it instantly, shoved it in my PlayStation and played it for hours. The experience never quite lived up to that frenzied excitement I felt as a child. The thrill of inching your way through the narrative maze, the sudden tidal swell of inspiration as puzzle solutions stung the back of your mind. With these things, the first time is always the best time. And for me, Broken Sword will always be a game I remember as one I watched rather than played. Our fifth entry is Dark Souls, and I'm sure I can't be alone in really enjoying watching this game. I'm one of those people, and there must be loads of us out there, come on, rise up in the comments, who loves the idea of Dark Souls. I want to love it, and I do. I love the setting, I love the lore, I love the way it tells its story, you know, presenting players with a narrative crust you can either skate over and leave completely unbroken, or crack into, revealing the hidden layers of detail within. The problem for me is I just lack the disposition to play Dark Souls, you know. I'm not a patient man. I hate dying in games. And so watching someone who's good at Dark Souls playing Dark Souls takes away that barrier for me. I don't have to worry about any of the boss fights because I'm not the one fighting them. You often hear people saying things like, yeah, it's hard, but the reward you feel after you've beaten a Dark Souls boss is unparalleled. Not for me, it isn't. I don't feel elated or rewarded after I beat a Dark Souls boss. All I feel is a sort of emotional afterburn as all the excess adrenaline slowly drains out of my system, only to be instantly replaced by cold dread about the next boss. Watching Dark Souls is a great way around all of that, and it really does make for great viewing. Tense fights, amazing music, haunting visuals, none of the fear. It's like being taken on a guided wildlife tour. You can see all the dangerous stuff, but you're safe behind the windows of a really strong car and able to just enjoy the view. Hitman 2 is next, a game that's amazing fun to watch for so many different reasons. Firstly, you could be like me and just plain suck at the game. You know, here's this incredible stealth playground full of options for fun, creative murder. And what do? The same thing every time. Hi, could I make a takeaway order for delivery, please? Yeah, could I get the sneak about and kill everybody? Yeah, and a side of eventually get spotted and end up taking out the target with an AK. The usual, yeah. I like watching Hitman because it's awesome fun to see expert players doing all the interesting things, you know, killing people with chandeliers and trains and irons and stuff, sneaking into places with disguises, slipping poison into food, you know, creative ways to play, the kind of play Hitman wants you to do. There are so many options in Hitman that even if you are really good at the game, it's still great fun watching someone else play just because you're highly unlikely to see a playthrough that's exactly the same as yours. Also, it's just funny, an amazing action comedy. Seriously, Hitman is one of the most entertaining games you can watch, especially if you've got friends over and pass the pad at the end of every level. Our final entry is a game I can only watch, owing to me being so catastrophically bad at it that were you to watch me playing, you'd probably need to bring along a bucket to be sick into. And that game is Tetris, the simplest game and the hardest game.
Honestly, my brain is just not wired for Tetris. You should see the state of the screen when I play.
Here you go. I just can't think fast enough or think ahead. But watching a pro playing Tetris is like watching Neo fight agents one-handed in the Matrix. These players can just see the code. They get themselves into this zen state where they just seem to inhabit the game, getting Tetris after Tetris.
It's testament to how bad at Tetris I am that I didn't actually know what a Tetris was until I finally watched the pros going at it.
Watching the professionals do it is mesmeric, and I thoroughly recommend some lunchtime expert Tetris viewing if you want your mind blown a little bit. So there you are, 7 games that are just as much fun to watch as play. Let us know your own favourites in the comments, give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all our videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next week for another Friday feature.
For the players.